1. What did Western celebrities and scholars say about the Prophet Muhammad? Part 1. The value of this reached what made him say that the sayings of some orientalists who admired the personality of the Prophet Muhammad, despite the fact that they embraced Islam and lost a word of truth written by history on their tongues, in their books and their heritage. And they did not love the Prophet except that his personality reached sophistication, morals and civilization to the most extent that made him to the extent he made him write books and mention his person all the time. And this is part of everything they said about his great recipes. One. Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of the Indian independence movement, spoke in an interview with Young India about the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad. He says, "I wanted to know the qualities of a man who would unquestionably rule the hearts of millions of people. I became completely convinced that the sword was not the means through which Islam was acquired. Rather, it was through the simplicity of the messenger with his accuracy and sincerity in his promises, his devotion and sincerity to his friends and followers, and his courage with his absolute confidence in his Lord and in his message. It is these qualities that paved the way, and overcame the difficulties, not the sword." After I finished reading the second part of the Prophet's life, I found myself regretting that there was no more to learn more about his great life. 2. Rama Krishna Rao. The great Indian professor and spiritualist Rama Krishna Rao said in his book, Muhammad the Prophet, that the personality of the Prophet Muhammad cannot be known in all its aspects. But all I can give is a glimpse of his life in beautiful sequences. There is Muhammad the Prophet, Muhammad the warrior, Muhammad the businessman, Muhammad the politician, Muhammad al-Khatib, Muhammad the reformer, Muhammad the refuge of orphans, the protector of slaves, Muhammad the liberator of women, Muhammad the judge. All these wonderful roles in all walks of human life qualify him to be a hero. 3. Sarojini Naidu. Sarojini Naidu, poet of India, said, "Islam is considered the first religion to advocate and implement democracy. And this democracy begins in the mosque 5 times a day when the call to prayer is called. And the villager and the king prostrate side by side in recognition that God is greater." What surprised me is this indivisible unity that made from each man automatically a brother to the other. Four. Alphonse de La Martin. The French thinker, philosopher and poet Lamartine said of the Prophet Muhammad, "May God's prayers and peace be upon him. If the criteria by which we measure the genius of man are the sublimity of the end and the astonishing results of that despite the lack of means, then who would dare to compare any of the greats of modern history with the Prophet Muhammad in his genius? These celebrities have made weapons and enacted laws and established empires. They achieved nothing but worn-out glories that soon collapsed in their midst. This Prophet Muhammad commanded armies, enacted legislation, established empires, ruled peoples, tamed rulers, and even eliminated monuments, men, religions, ideas and false beliefs. The Prophet Muhammad was patient and forbearing until he attained victory from God. His ambition was entirely directed at one goal, not an empire or something like that. Even the constant prayer of the Prophet, his soliloquy with his Lord, his death and his victory even after his death, all of this does not indicate cheating and deception, but rather indicates the sincere certainty that gave the Prophet the energy and strength to establish the sound belief. This is Muhammad, the philosopher, the preacher, the prophet, the legislator, the warrior, the conqueror of desires, the founder of the intellectual doctrines that call for true worship, without monuments or arrows. He is the founder of 20 empires on earth, and one spiritual empire. This is the Prophet Muhammad. Considering all measures of human greatness, I would like to ask, is there anyone greater than the Prophet Muhammad? Peace and blessings of God be upon him. He says in the book, The Travel to the East, any man realized the greatness of humanity as Muhammad realized, and any person reached the ranks. Perfection is as it has reached. The messenger destroyed the false beliefs that take a mediator between creator and creature. Montgomery. Opening parenthesis. Montgomery Watt, from the book Muhammad in Mecca, 1953, p. 52. Closing parenthesis. He says, this man's willingness to endure persecution for his beliefs, the sublime moral nature of those who believed in him and followed him and considered him their master and leader, along with the greatness of his absolute achievements. All this denotes the justice and integrity inherent in his person. Assuming that Muhammad is a false assumption raises more problems than solves them. Indeed, there is not one of the greats of Western history who did not receive a proper appreciation for her, like what he did to Muhammad. 6. Bosworth Smith. Opening parenthesis. Bosworth Smith, from the book Muhammad and Muhammadiyah, London 1874, p. 92. Closing parenthesis. He says, Muhammad was a political leader and a religious leader at the same time. But he did not have the arrogance of the clergy, nor did he have legions like the Caesars. He had no armies, or private guards, or a built palace, or a steady income. If anyone were to say that he ruled by divine power, then it is Muhammad. Because he was able to hold the reins of power without owning its tools and without the support of its people. 7. Gibbon Oakley. Opening parenthesis. Edward Gibbon and Simon Oakley, from the book History of the Empire of the East, London 1870, p. 54. Closing parenthesis. Gibbon and Kelly said, it is not the spread of the Islamic call that deserves to be impressed, but its continuity and stability throughout the ages. The wonderful impression that Muhammad made in Mecca and Medina still has the same splendor and strength in the souls of Indians, Africans and Turks who are new to the Quran, despite the passage of 12 centuries. Muslims have been able to withstand one hand in the face of the temptation of believing in God, even though they did not know him except through human reason and feelings, saying, I bear witness that there is no God but God and that Muhammad is the messenger of God, is simply the testimony of Islam. Their sense of the divinity of God, mighty and majestic, was not affected by the presence of any of the visible things that were taken as gods besides God. The honor and virtues of the Prophet did not exceed the limits of virtue known to humans, and his approach to life made the manifestations of the companions' gratitude to him for his guidance and bringing them out of darkness into light, confined to the scope of reason and religion. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget like the video, and don't forget to subscribe channel.